The wind rolled across the silent plains, stirring dust in lazy swirls beneath the moonlight. Most of the ranches had gone dark hours ago, resting in peace under the silver sky, except one. The ranch house of Elijah Carter, a young widowed cowboy, burned with lamplight, and from inside came the piercing cry of a newborn. The baby had been wailing for hours, his tiny face red from exhaustion, his cries filled not just with hunger, but grief he could not understand, only feel. Elijah paced back and forth, boots thudding dully across the creaking floorboards. He tried everything, rocking, soft shushing, even warming milk, but the child refused every comfort. Elijah's shirt was soaked with sweat, his heart with helplessness. His wife had passed during childbirth just 2 weeks ago, leaving him with a child he did not know how to care for, and a home that no longer felt like home. Outside, the barn lantern flickered. Across the fence lived Clara Hayes, a quiet woman in her late 20s who had kept to herself since tragedy struck her own life years ago. But tonight, as she stood at her window in her small cottage, the baby's cries were different, raw, desperate, echoing across the dark fields like a cry for help. Clara pressed a hand to her chest. Something pulled at her heart. She blew out her candle, threw on her shawl, and stepped out into the cold night. Every cry from that child felt like a calling. And tonight, she could no longer stay behind her fence. Elijah was near breaking. His rough, calloused hands trembled as he lifted his son once more, trying to calm him. The baby's tiny fists thrashed against Elijah's chest, his cries turning hoarse with exhaustion. Elijah blinked back tears he would never allow anyone to see. The silence of night outside only made the baby's wailing feel louder, sharper, almost accusing. Then, knock, knock. Elijah stiffened. At this hour, he hesitated, placing the baby gently in the cradle. The child wailed harder the moment he let go. Elijah rushed to the door, fury and desperation battling in his eyes. He swung it open. There she stood, Clara Hayes, shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her brown hair loose in the night wind, eyes shining with concern. She wasn't smiling, wasn't timid. She looked straight at him and said softly, "Let me help." Elijah's jaw tightened. "This is my son. I can handle him." But even as he spoke, the baby's cries reached a painful crescendo behind him. Clara's gaze softened, not with pity, but with knowing. "He's hungry, Elijah. The kind of hunger only a mother could have given comfort to. But she's gone." Clara swallowed, steadying her voice. "You don't have to do this alone." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Elijah stepped aside. Clara entered quietly, her eyes locking on the crying child. She moved toward the cradle with a gentleness that seemed to quiet the very air in the room. Outside, the wind stilled, as if the plains themselves were holding their breath. Clara leaned over the cradle, her warm hands gently scooping the baby into her arms. Elijah watched, tense, as if afraid she might shatter the fragile world he was barely holding together. But the moment the child rested against her, a miracle took place, the crying stopped. The baby let out a few soft hiccups, then nestled into Clara's chest as if he had known her all along. Elijah's breath caught. Clara sat in the rocking chair by the fire, her movements slow and rhythmic, humming a tune so soft it could have been carried on angel's wings. It was the same lullaby Elijah's late wife used to sing. He hadn't heard it since the night she passed. How do you know that song?" he whispered. Clara didn't look up. "Your wife taught it to me last winter when I helped her during the snowstorm. She said it was your mother's." Elijah stood silent, hands flexing at his sides, his throat tight. The memory of those days flooded back, his wife smiling, laughing, speaking fondly of Clara as though she were her own sister. He never imagined that woman would be the one sitting in his home now, cradling his child like a gift she had been waiting her whole life to receive. The baby sighed contentedly, drifting into peaceful sleep for the first time in nights. Clara looked up then, eyes meeting Elijah's. "He doesn't just need milk," she said softly. "He needs warmth. He needs love." Elijah didn't reply, but his eyes spoke volumes. A door in his heart had been locked since his wife's passing. For the first time, it trembled. Elijah stood by the window, watching snow fall silently over the dark prairie, each flake illuminated by the glow of the fireplace. Behind him, the room was still. Clara sat with the sleeping child in her arms, her eyes closed, her breathing soft and steady as if she had finally found the place her soul had been longing for. For hours, the baby had not cried. Elijah couldn't remember the last time peace had filled this room. Slowly, Clara opened her eyes and looked down at the baby nestled against her. Her hand brushed over his tiny forehead, full of a gentleness Elijah had never seen even in his wife's final days. "I should take him," Elijah said quietly. But he made no move to step closer. Clara looked up at him, a softness in her eyes that disarmed every wall he had built. "He's fine. He feels safe." Elijah swallowed. "Thank you, Clara. I didn't know what else to do." She stood, still holding the child, and stepped toward him. The closeness made Elijah's breath falter. Her presence filled the room with a warmth deeper than the fire. "Your wife," Clara said softly, "asked me to look after both of you, if anything ever happened." Elijah stiffened, shock flashing across his face. "She told me," Clara continued, "that if the time came, this house shouldn't be lonely. That a man can be strong, and still need someone." The room went quiet. The baby stirred, then rested peacefully again. Elijah's voice was barely a whisper. "Clara, are you saying?" She met his gaze, not with boldness but with truth. "I didn't come here out of pity," she said. "I came because I belong here. And maybe, you know it too." Elijah stood still, every breath echoing in his chest. Clara held the child with a tenderness that felt less like an act of kindness, and more like destiny unfolding. The wind outside howled, but inside the ranch house, there was a stillness, like the land itself was listening. Clara gently placed the baby in Elijah's arms. The infant rested against his father's chest, no longer crying. Clara didn't step back, she stood close, her presence steady, unwavering. "Elijah," she said softly, "this child needs a mother's heart. And you," her eyes didn't waver, "need someone to remind you that this home isn't just where you survive. It's where you live." He tried to speak, but emotion stole his voice. Clara continued, her voice low and sure. "Your wife didn't ask me to replace her. She asked me to carry on the love she left in this home. I won't force you, but I won't walk away either." Elijah felt the burn of unshed tears. For the first time in months, his arms didn't feel heavy. The child slept peacefully. And Clara, she wasn't just offering comfort. She was offering a life. His voice trembled. "Clara, will you stay?" She smiled, not the shy smile of a neighbor girl, but the steady smile of a woman who had already chosen. "I was waiting for you to ask." The wind outside calmed, as if even the night had exhaled in relief. Elijah looked at Clara, then at his son, and whispered the truth that changed everything. "This house is no longer mine alone. It's ours." And the baby, without opening his eyes, smiled.